Moms on Mike's Mother's Day contest. Is there a mom in your life who truly inspires you? A mom who has overcome challenges and obstacles while still showing up every day with love and strength. Maybe your own mom went above and beyond in ways you'll never forget. We want to hear her story. Send us your nominations and we'll share them on our special Mother's Day episode. After hearing these incredible stories, our listeners will vote for the mom they feel deserves to win a $100 gift card to a local restaurant. Let's celebrate the amazing moms in our community. We can't wait to read your stories. All entries must be submitted by April 25th, 2026. Send your entries to us via email, momsonmikes@gmail.com, or through our Facebook page at Moms on Mikes, or Instagram at Moms on Mikes Podcast. Hello and welcome to Moms on Mikes. I'm Joanne.
I'm Cash.
And I'm Sophia.
Lake Ontario is the smallest of the 5 Great Lakes by surface area, but the 14th largest globally with a volume of 393 cubic miles. It reaches over 800 feet deep and sits 325 feet below Lake Erie. The lake's outlet is St. Lawrence River, which carries its waters to the Atlantic Ocean. Lake Ontario is the home to numerous shipwrecks, including some of the oldest in the Great Lakes. I have to say, when I read that, I was like, what do you mean a shipwreck on a lake? Like, it seemed so weird. And I guess as someone that is totally oblivious to what a Great Lake is, I'm like, I live in a lake community. What do you mean there's a shipwreck? Yes, I sound so dumb. But so I looked it up and I was like, oh, they're really big lakes. They're like humongous. I'm like, I've been to the shoe swap, but you can still kind of see land and stuff, right? So I'm like, what is a ship doing on it? Yeah. So for anyone else like me, they're not little lakes. I did see it called the Ocean of the Land, I think, is what people kind of refer to the Great Lakes. I was like, that makes more sense.
I used to live right next to the St. Lawrence River.
Oh, did you?
We used to watch the ships come in all the time.
It's so bizarre to me. Like, I guess in my defense, I grew up in England, not on the seaside though. Like I'm central north kind of, so I was landlocked like we are here in Calgary. But when we went to the seaside, we got to see all the big ships and stuff, and they just don't have lakes like the Great Lakes in England because England's so small, right? Like, and even when I'm like St. Lawrence River, how do you get a ship on that? It's fucking big. I'm like, the graveyard of Lake Ontario is a short area of water off the coast of Prince Edward County that has been the site of shipwrecks, plane crashes, unusual sightings, and mysterious disappearances for generations. Known as the Bermuda Triangle of the Great Lakes, it is notorious for hundreds of shipwrecks, unexplained crew disappearances. For example, the Bavaria, the mysterious magnetic anomalies, the timber schooner Bavaria, which sank on May 28th, 1989, is one of the most unusual stories related with a shipwreck on Lake Ontario. The ship's 8-man crew vanished without a trace minutes after it broke free from the towing barge in the middle of the storm on Lake Ontario. The Bavaria made it through the storm. It landed upright on Galoo Island, part of the Duck Island chain. However, the entire crew of the boat vanished and was never seen again. Creepy.
The steam barge Calvin had the Bavaria in tow with a line of 2 other lumber hookers, according to the tale, and the tow line separated at approximately 6 a.m. The schooner Valentina was trailed by Bavaria, which was in the middle of a line of 3 vessels under tow. The Norway, a third ship, was towed behind the Bavaria. The Bavaria drifted off to ram the Norway when the line between Valentina and Bavaria collapsed. Although neither ship suffered hull damage, the jar toppled some of the Norway's headgear. Despite this, the crew of the Norway set sail and steered their stricken ship into the lee of one of the surrounding islands. They anchored there there and awaited the storm's arrival. The Bavaria, on the other hand, breached, sank into the sea's trough, and stayed there. The Calvin skipper saw that no one tried to raise sail or turn the boat around while he was watching. He stated he could see the Bavaria beginning to take on water as the waves rolled across the deck. The Calvin swung around and pulled alongside of the Bavaria, where the captain hailed the boat, expecting Captain John Marshall and his crew to assist in attachment of a new hawser. There was, however, no reaction. The schooner appeared to be abandoned. A few hundred feet distant from the ship, the Bavaria's lifeboat was discovered floating upside down. The crew of the Bavaria abandoned ship minutes after the line parted for some unknown cause, making no attempt to raise sail and save the ship. The poor sailors, according to the notion, didn't get far before their boat capsized and they all drowned. Their bodies, however, were never discovered. And why would an experienced sailor like Captain Marshall abandon a seaworthy ship in the middle of a gale and risk his life in an open boat? Did he think his ship was going to sink as a result of the collision? The Bavaria's hull was found to be in good condition, and the vessel's mast and upper works were not damaged in the collision, according to the study. I feel like I read something about Paw Patrol.
Why? Why does that remind you? Oh, because of Marshall?
Not only that, but it's just something like some of their episodes would be like on a boat and they're rescuing people or trying to.
Gotcha. I do find it so like creepy, like with ships. Like I was listening to a podcast that covered the USS Indianapolis, and then I watched the movie about it, and the movie's great. It doesn't go into quite as much detail as I would like, but the podcast I listened to and stuff, and I've like read a whole bunch of stuff on this, a crazy story and creepy shit. But I find like shipwrecks and stuff fascinating, terrifying. Like I'd never go on a cruise ever. Boats scare the fuck out of me. Like I like to go on like small bits of water, like, and I can do like a speedboat and like that kind of thing. That's fine, but a giant ship, fuck no. We've seen the Titanic. We know what happens. I ain't going on a boat. But it's creepy though that the captain, like, because that's the thing, right? The captain's supposed to go down with the ship, but the captain went down before the ship. What the fuck? Like, it's so weird that they would just abandon ship for no reason. Creepy. Have you guys seen Ghost Ship?
Yes.
No.
I like that movie.
The opening scene? Was it Ghost Ship? The one with the line that comes.
Yeah.
Fuck, greatest opening scene ever.
Yeah.
It was
I liked that
amazing.
movie. Yeah.
Oh, love it. You haven't seen it, Cash? Would you like us to tell you what happens in the opening
Doesn't
scene?
like scary movies.
I know. That's why I asked. I won't tell you.
I forget what water it is on, but it's one of the worst waters to go on a ship with, and you're like actually tied to your bed at night.
Jesus. I couldn't do that, man. I mean, I toss and turn like a motherfucker, and I sleep on land. Like, I could not be on a boat.
I forget what it's called, but for 24 hours, you are literally like when you go to bed, you're tied to your bed. You're just all over the place.
Oh, it terrifies me. Like the ocean, man, like that shit. You're nothing compared to like the waves and stuff, right? Like they're like, "Ah, look at the little shrimp." Boop. Like you have no hope.
The schooner Picton, which transported coal from Rochester, United States to Belleville, Ontario, is also a famous shipwreck. With two other ships, the Picton set sail. In 1900, the Picton went missing in the Marysburg vortex. The Picton's disappearance is difficult to explain because it was escorted by two other ships full of eyewitnesses. Witnesses reported the ship vanished suddenly, as if it had plunged into a bottomless pit. The only things left were a few loose gratings and a sailor's cap, followed 3 days later by a bottle holding a message. I've tied Vesey to me with a heaving line so that we can both be found. The Picton's Captain J. Sidley, the captain's son's name was Vesey. Captain Sidley. No bodies were ever discovered. The upper sails dropped down, and then the rest of the sails fell down, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. Kello said the video, referring to the Picton schooner, the Marysburg Vortex, aka the graveyard of Lake Ontario, stretches from Prince Edward County's Marysburg Township to Kingston and Oswego, New York. The Bavaria and the Picton were just two of the 270 ships that have met their watery grave in the Marysburg Vortex. The frigid fresh water preserves these vessels remarkably well, creating an underwater museum of a maritime history with a proposed national marine sanctuary protecting many of these sites. The sky was clear, the wind was calm. It was perfect weather for a short pleasure flight over the shores of Prince Edward County. But as his plane made its way over Prince Edward Point, the peninsula at the county's southern tip, something unnerving began to happen. Without any sign of turbulence, the plane banked sharply to one side and locked itself in that position. It was as if an invisible giant took hold of the wing, says Scott. I could not straighten it out. Without the ability to counter, Scott feared his plane would flip over entirely and fall into a spin, which at 1,000 feet would have been tough to pull out of. His plane began to right itself after about 10 seconds. Then the same thing happened with the other wing. Somehow, despite all the mid-air chaos, Scott was able to make it down safely, though he was understandably rattled. It shakes you up a bit, like what just happened. Scott, 46 years later, still wonders. He has flown in just about every kind of weather imaginable, but he has no explanation for what occurred that day. It was just totally weird, says Scott. I've experienced nothing like that before or since, and I've never heard of anything like that. There are strange things out there.
That would be fucking terrifying.
Yep.
I shit my pants every time there's like a little bit of turbulence on a plane. I am not a good flyer. I like to go places. I don't like how I have to get there. I would be so terrified. I mean, I saw his plane. It was just like one of those small, like a private.
Yeah.
I would be terrified in that plane flying normally. I'd be terrified on the runway in that plane. And then all of a sudden, if the plane just gonna go sideways for a bit. Fuck. Hell no. Oh my God. It gives me the willies just hearing it. Lake Ontario, known for shipwrecks, sits above a suspected 460 million year old meteorite crater at Charity Shoal. A 2013 study confirmed this underwater circular feature, which shows strong magnetic anomalies that may contribute to the region's mysterious navigational and magnetic disruptions. The crater is located about 25 kilometers south of Kingston, Ontario, specifically in the area of Charity Shoal. Studies by the USRA and NOAA identified a ring-shaped 1 kilometer wide and roughly 20 meters deep crater with a central magnetic low and high outer ring. The structure is believed to be a prehistoric, deeply submerged meteor impact site. Beyond the geological, the area is historically associated with numerous unexplained ship disappearances and odd magnetic readings. The Marysburg Vortex is also known for a number of strange sightings and optical illusions. Kello says she experienced one herself at Prince Edward County's Little Bluff Conservation Area. Kello says that she and a friend could hear a returning jet ski. As they looked out over the lake, the jet ski appeared in the sky. We could see it, but it was upside down, and that image kind of hung there for several minutes. Kello told Global Kingston, Kello says she's learned the apparition was caused by a natural phenomenon called thermal inversion. It kind of bends the light. Sidney Wells says he also has seen something unusual in the night sky near Little Bluff Conservation Area. Wells says He was at a friend's house on September 15th, 1986, with several other couples. He was going to set up his telescope to look at stars on his friend's deck when he saw something unexpected in the night sky. It was a diamond as a ring, like the kind of thing with facets, but it wasn't rays. Coming out of it, it was covered in a shroud of like a cloud. Wells said he ran and got the other couples. We all stood there and we stared, and it just sat there hovering, and then it started to revolve, very slowly spinning. Wells says the object in the night sky then disappeared suddenly, as if someone flicked a switch. Until that night, Wells said he was a skeptic when it came to UFOs, but no longer. It wasn't terrestrial. There's no question in my mind that there was, and there was no question in my friends' minds. Skeptic or believer, Kello says there is something magical about the area. It's so beautiful and so kind of remote, said Kello, and you just feel yourself getting in touch with the earth when you're down in this end.
Along with missing ships come reports of strange floating lights over the lake. These orbs, as they have come to be known, have been documented in other areas of Lake Ontario and indeed around the world. No one knows exactly what they are, but they seem to fly around with an intelligence and maneuverability which would defy modern aeronautics. Many state that these orbs could be nocturnal drills and practices undertaken by the Canadian Air Force. Indeed, the Marysburg vortex is not so far away from CFB Trenton Air Base, the hub for air transport operations in Canada and abroad, and operated by Canadian Forces Air Command, AirCom. All manner of aircraft come and go from there, and it is conceivable that at least part of the orb reports can be attributed to air traffic. However, some are not so easily swayed. Many reports exist of similar bizarre disappearances in these waters. No solid explanation has come forth to shed light on these mysteries, but a few interesting facts have been found out over the years, which may serve as pieces to the puzzle. Project Magnet was an unidentified flying object (UFO) study program established by Transport Canada in December 1950 under the direction of Wilbur Brockhouse Smith, senior radio engineer for Transport Canada's broadcast and measurement section. It was formally active until mid-1954 and informally active without government funding until Smith's death in 1962. Smith eventually concluded that UFOs were probably extraterrestrial in origin and likely operated by manipulation of the magnetism. Smith made a request to use the facilities of the Department of Transport to study UFOs. The project was formally approved on December 2nd, 1950, with the intentions to collect data about UFOs and apply any recovered data to practical engineering and technology. The ultimate goal of the project was to apply any findings on the subject of geomagnetism to the possibility of exploiting Earth's magnetic field as a source of propulsion for vehicles. Smith and his colleagues in government believed that UFOs, if real, might hold the key to this new source of power. A small-scale undertaking, the project used DOT facilities with some assistance personnel at the Defense Research Board, DRB, and then the National Research Council. In June 1952, Smith issued a preliminary report arguing that UFOs likely came from intelligent extraterrestrial sources and almost certainly manipulated magnetism for flight. A 1953 report reiterated these conclusions. Also in April 1952, the Canadian government established Project Second Story, a parallel UFO research project with Smith also involved. It consisted of a group of scientists and military officers who met periodically to consider the UFO question and to recommend government action. Smith reported to Second Story on some of Project Magnet's findings and conclusions.
Is it not crazy to think that Canada had like a UFO department or whatever, right? Like you think of the states having that, like with their, Area 51 and all that, but I totally didn't even think that Canada would be involved at all. It just seemed so far out of Canada's realm, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But it's fucking cool.
Smith believed UFOs were linked to psychic phenomena and believed himself to be in contact with extraterrestrial beings who communicated to him through telepathy. Smith wrote a number of articles for Topside, the publication of the Ottawa New Sciences Club, which he founded, outlining the philosophy of the Space Brothers with whom he claimed to be in contact. The articles were later collected and published posthumously in 1969 under the title The Boys from Topside. Lake Ontario is dangerous due to its unpredictable ocean-like conditions, featuring 3-meter-plus waves, strong rip outlet currents, and cold water temperatures causing rapid hypothermia. As the endpoint of the Great Lakes system, it faces high pollution rates, while sudden intense windstorms can create hazardous situations for swimmers and boaters.
There is a point to me putting all these like weird stuff in here though. So if anyone is listening and be like, why are we talking about all this weird stuff? It's coming up. Hang on for like 30 seconds and we're going to get to. I just basically was setting the scene for why this lake is so like mysterious and what and like shit happens on this lake and has happened on this lake for hundreds of years.
Okay. Rip currents and fast-moving outlet currents near the river mouths are common and can drag swimmers into deep water. The lake can develop intense, unpredictable, high-energy waves over 3 meters during windy conditions, similar to ocean surf. Even in the summer, cold water can lead to rapid hypothermia. Storms can move through at 60 miles per hour, approximately 96 kilometers an hour, with little or no warning. In the early hours of March 17th, 1995, St. Patrick's Day, 6 teenage boys, 17-year-old Jay Boyle, 18-year-old Chad Smith, and 17-year-old Robbie Rumbold, all of Pickering, along with 17-year-old Jamie Lefevre from Scarborough, 17-year-old Michael Cummins of Oshawa, and 17-year-old Danny Higgins of Ajax, vanished from Pickering, Ontario, Canada, after attending a house party. The boys were typical teenagers as they had a few run-ins with police and often ended their nights down by the marina.
Yeah, so most of the like disappearances and the shipwrecks and stuff were like of olden days, right? Obviously there has been like people that have drowned and such like on the lake since then, but this is a weird one and they're still looking for these boys today. So this was my whole point of the long ass introduction of the shipwrecks and the UFOs and the planes and the crater and all that. So it's important to note that there is not a lot of personal information to be found on the boys. This is because a lot of the early reporting is not available online. Jay Boyle's family has been the most vocal, so we know a little bit more about him than the others. Jay Boyle, one of the older boys in the group, was described as protective and responsible, close with his family, with no history of running away. Friends said he was not reckless and unlikely to abandon his life voluntarily. He had dropped out of school and moved in with his girlfriend and their child. He was known as a bit of a troublemaker and had already done time for assault charges and was awaiting charges on additional assault and weapons charges. At the time of his disappearance, he was described as a 17-year-old white male, 6 foot, 150 pounds, brown hair, and green eyes. Distinguishing marks and features, he has a scar in the middle of his back and left leg, a tattoo of a dragon's head on his right bicep, and a tattoo of a red devil with a banner over it on his left forearm. His little right finger has been fractured. He's wearing a red hooded sweatshirt, green cotton Fila sweatshirt, maroon denim pants, black canvas baseball cap, black and white canvas Adidas running shoes. Michael Cummins, known as quiet, kind, and laid back. He enjoyed spending time with his friends rather than partying heavily. Family has consistently stated his disappearance was completely out of character. He had future plans and close family ties. At the time of his disappearance, he was described as a 17-year-old white male, 6 feet, 154 pounds, brown hair, and blue eyes. His left ear is pierced. He was wearing a black sweatshirt, green cotton hooded sweatshirt, blue denim pants, white canvas running shoes. Danny Higgins was fun-loving and social. He liked joking around and being part of a group. He was not known to take extreme risks and had strong friendships and community connections. At the time of his disappearance, he was described as 17 years old, white male, 5'9", 134 pounds, with brown hair and blue eyes. He has a tattoo of the word Cujo on his right upper arm. He was wearing blue denim pants, black Detroit Red Wings baseball hat, and brown shoes.
Chad Smith was athletic and active. Friends described him as confident but not reckless. He had no known reason to disappear voluntarily. He was very much rooted in daily routines, school, friends, and family. At the time of his disappearance, he was described as white male, 5'11", 170 pounds, with shoulder-length brown hair, brown eyes, and a tattoo of a cross on his left hand. Investigating Agency, Durham Regional Police Services, case number 95/26936.
Yeah, that was the only one that I could find, like, the police case number for. I don't know if that file number, like, is connected to all of them, but I think if anyone had any information, they could probably contact and reference that case number, and it would still connect with all of them, I think.
Robbie Rumbold was one of the younger boys. He was described as gentle and loyal, close to his family, and not street savvy in a way that would suggest running away or long-term survival on his own. At the time of his disappearance, he was described as 16-year-old white male. His eye color was brown, his hair color was brown, short, and he was 5'6", weighing 134 pounds, medium built. Jamie Lefevre was known as friendly and easygoing. He enjoyed being part of the group dynamic. He had no known conflicts, debts, or issues that would explain a disappearance. His family strongly rejected any runaway narrative. At the time of his disappearance, he was described as a 17-year-old white male with brown eyes and blonde hair. He was 5 feet 8 inches, weighing 119 pounds, with a slender build. March 15, 1995, the 6 boys entered the marina and stole a giant floating water tricycle, but returned it that same night. They were known for stealing watercrafts from the marina and beers from boats, but they always returned them. That same night, Jay was arrested for breaking into a grocery store, but was let go as he hadn't taken anything. March 16, 1996. They attended a basement party. Jay's girlfriend, Monique, and his sister Amanda, who often attended the same parties, did not attend. Something worth noting. Danny Higgins took off his expensive chain that he apparently never took off and handed it to his mother that night and asked her to look after it.
Have you guys ever rode one of those water tricycles?
No, but I want to.
They're so hard. It's so weird because you're like on this massive like bike with these wheels, but you're on top of the water and you're like, oh, it's just trippy. I haven't done it in years and years, but like I want to say like, actually, I'm not going to say how many years because that makes me really old, but it's been a very long time. But if I remember, they were pretty cool. They were just difficult. They used to have them at Sylvan Lake.
Did they?
Yeah, years and years and years ago when they had the cool water slides there and everything.
The party was a typical teenage party, beer, marijuana, and hanging out. Danny Higgins fought with the other boys at some point, but it is not clear if it was just arguing or if it became physical. But they all made up and decided to head to Jay's house to continue drinking. Jay phoned Monique at 1:30 a.m. March 17th. He told her that he had planned to go to the marina on the way. 18 minutes later, Michael, Jamie, and Robbie were seen on surveillance at the East Shore Marina at Frenchman's Bay. The other 3 boys were not with them. The 3 boys on the surveillance walked in a single file line, not interacting with each other. It looked a bit strange, like they were being led somewhere by someone, too stiff to be just 3 boys having a good time. Some sources say that the boys stole the water tricycle again that night, but that is incorrect. When they had taken it before, they hadn't fastened it properly to the dock, so it most likely drifted off on its own. Between 2 and 2:30 a.m., boat dwellers who lived at the marina heard an engine start and a boat go out of the water. This would be pretty loud at that time of the morning. There wouldn't have been any noise interference from other activities on the lake. The boys were never seen or heard from again. At 3:30 a.m., some of the boys' girlfriends called the Durham Police Department to report the boys missing. The police knew the boys and told the girlfriends there was nothing they could do about it, and the boys' parents would have to call the next day to report them missing. I get that the boys were known to police, so the police probably just assumed they were out late causing trouble again, but that's almost all the more reason for them to go looking. Try to prevent said trouble, or at the very least, catch them in the act.
Yeah, it just seems really odd that the police wouldn't have gone out to look for them, right? But watching the surveillance video, so these 3 boys, they've been drinking, they've been smoking marijuana, and they break into this marina and they're caught like on video and they are just walking straight in like a single line. That's not how you'd be acting, right? Like you're going to have a good time, you're going to steal a boat, you're going to have all this, but you're drunk, you're high, you'd be interacting with each other and they just weren't. Like it's really eerie to watch them just walk in a straight line. I mean, teenagers don't walk in a straight line sober, you know?
Did they have the video posted online? Like, did you see the video?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
it's 1995 quality, right? So
I'm
it's
gonna have to look that up.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a bit
Okay.
grainy, but you can totally see them and they're just walking in a straight single file. Like it's not even that they're standing next to each other so that maybe they could have been talking, but you just can't see them. But I don't know, when I'm talking, if you can't tell my hands are going, I'm moving around, there's something, right? And if I've been drunk, for one, I'm not walking in a straight line if I've been drinking and doing marijuana, right? You're gonna stumble, you're gonna sway a little bit. They're not. They're stiff and they're walking straight, like definitely with purpose. So unless they didn't drink that much and smoke that much, but even still, I feel like you would be talking to each other. You'd turn around, you would look, you know, or at the very least, you've broken into a marina. Wouldn't you kind of be like ducking or like moving quickly from spot to spot where you know that they do this all the time apparently. They're going to know where the cameras are. It's really eerie. The video doesn't seem to fit with what they're supposedly doing. So at 9 a.m., Monique called the police again to report Jay missing, and the police told her the same thing. There was nothing they could do and to have his parents call, which I get that. Like, I understand, not just anyone can report somebody missing, especially a 17-year-old. It has to be the parents or, I mean, I was married at 17, so it would have been my husband, but it's parents, guardian, spouse. Those are the people, right? Just your girlfriend or whatever can't. But they could have at least, I still feel they could have sent a patrol car. I can't see that the area would have been so busy they couldn't have spared a patrol car to just go check it out when they called initially even. So it took till the end of the day for all the boys' parents to be informed of that their sons were missing and for the parents to file the missing persons reports. 36 hours after the girls had first talked to the Durham Police Department, they began the search. The fact that the boys were known to have been on the water and the police waited 36 hours to begin searching is ridiculous. It's Ontario, on Lake Ontario in March. It would have been freezing. The police should have acted quickly, knowing that the hypothermia would be at risk and if they were on a boat and got into trouble. Police went to the marina to check the security footage. The marina owners reported that the neighboring marina said that they were missing the water tricycle, and one of their members was reporting missing an imitation 14-foot Boston whaler. The Boston whaler was known for being the unsinkable motorboat. The way it was built meant the boat would continue to float even if it took on water. There were advertisements for this boat from the 1960s with two guys floating on a boat that was cut in half. It's pretty cool. This commercial advertisement, whatever, like the boat is literally like sawn in half and there's a guy on each side and they're still floating with the boat cut in half. It's pretty cool. But it's important to note that the advertisement was on a calm lake. So I don't know if that would make a difference. Lake Ontario is so massive and rough, it's more like an ocean. But I don't know, water's water, right? Like if it's not taking on water, like even though the lake is calm, it still could, it's sawn in half. Take any boat, saw it in half, and then try and put it on a calm lake. You're sinking. You know, the fact that this one wasn't sinking, even with it cut in half, is still impressive.
The boat the boys were on wasn't very big, especially for 6 males. This was a replica Boston whaler. The authentic Boston whaler boats are famously unsinkable due to their unibond construction process, which injects high-density closed-cell foam into the cavity between the inner and the outer fiberglass hulls. This foam fills the entire space, creating incredible buoyancy and structural strength that keeps the boat afloat, even if the hull is severely damaged, swamped, or cut into multiple pieces. The primary difference between an authentic Boston whaler and a replica or clone lies in the patented unibond construction process, which creates a uniquely rigid, durable, and truly unsinkable boat. While replicas may copy the iconic hull shape, they often fail to replicate the structural integrity, foam filling technique, and material quality of an original whaler. The Boston whaler uses a steering wheel to control the rudder. On the replica, you had to use a handle. A boat with a handle at the back to control the rudder doesn't usually have a ladder, so if someone went over the side of the boat, there would be no ladder to get back onto the boat with, making it very difficult to get back in. This type of boat is more of a fishing boat, not like a boat for tubing. The owner of the missing boat said there was less than a quarter of a tank of gas in the boat, enough to get to Toronto, but not enough to get to the US side. So police in the US were not notified. The police only showed the parents 15 minutes of the surveillance tape, and despite there only being 3 of the boys on the tape, they still believed that all 6 boys were on the boat, and they began to search Lake Ontario. The Canadian Air Forces dispatched a C-130 and a helicopter. The Coast Guard and thousands of volunteers joined the search. The aircraft saw a vessel just below the surface. It hadn't sunk to the bottom of the lake, but wasn't visible to the other ship or from shore. The Air Force gave the tip to the police. However, the police did nothing with it. After 36 hours of searching, the Durham police called off the search, announcing the boys had likely run out of fuel or capsized and drowned after the frigid water had induced hypothermia.
And that, that's bullshit. Like they had the tip that the airplane could see a vessel under the water, but the police just went, I guess they drowned. Like, I don't know. That just seems shitty. They should have checked it out at the very least, I think. They were right there. Why not just check it out?
It seems to be very common in all the cases. The police don't do very much.
Right? Like, and I would love if there's like a policeman or an investigator or somebody that could explain why that is, or say like, hey, look, we do way more. It's just not reported on, or whatever. Like, if we're wrong and they do all this effort that we're not hearing about, I'd like to be corrected. But from where it stands, from the information we can find, fuck all's being done. Or they do like minimal effort and we're like, look, we looked, and then and I'm sure it's probably due to like funding or resources, it'll be something like that. But 6 kids or like 6 teenagers, they're all missing.
The police made that statement without finding any evidence of the fact. They hadn't located the boat, which would not have sunk to the bottom of the lake yet. The Boston whaler replica was not unsinkable as the original Boston whaler, but due to the materials it was made with, it would have taken a very long time, possibly even weeks to sink. They had found nothing belonging to the boys and no bodies. While they could have gone into the water, bodies usually float. Yes, they could have taken water into their lungs, and the cold water creates more pressure, making it possible for some of the boys' bodies to sink. But according to some cold water divers, the chances of this happening to all 6 boys was not very likely. A body submerged in water typically sinks, then later floats to the surface as decomposition produces gases, methane, hydrogen sulfide, that cause bloating as gases expand. The abdomen may rupture, leading to further decay, skin slippage, and eventually the separation of limbs from the torso. Decomposition generally slows due to cold anaerobic conditions, but warm aerobic water speeds it up. Key changes include adipocere formation, that's like a waxy coating, skin slippage, bruising, and activity from marine scavengers. So we would assume that if their bodies did sink, some of the body parts would have washed up on shore at some point. The problem is, because of how cold Lake Ontario is, the separation of body parts may not happen. The cold temperatures could preserve the bodies. The water that night was around 4.4 Celsius. That is 40 degrees Fahrenheit. At that temperature, hypothermia can set in within 10 to 15 minutes, while survival time can extend up to an hour before unconsciousness. The intense cold causes immediate, violent cold shock and loss of muscle dexterity, making self-rescue difficult within minutes. Cold shock happens in roughly 0 to 2 minutes, initial involuntary gasping and breathing difficulties. Swim failure happens around 2 to 15 minutes. Muscles become paralyzed, making swimming impossible. Hypothermia occurs at 15 plus minutes. The body core temperature drops dangerously, leading to loss of consciousness. There is also a lack of marine scavengers due to the cold temperatures. Other than the Lake Ontario serpent, aka King's Tie, cousin of the Ogopogo and Loch Ness Lake. Lake Ontario is mainly home to salmon and trout, nothing that would dismember bodies.
I can't believe we just skimmed right over skin slippage.
Oh, I was reading that and I'm like, why do I always get the not very nice stuff?
Do you know what skin slippage is, though?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I read a whole thing on it. I was like, wow.
Isn't that when your skin slips off your body?
Yeah, from like when you're if a body is
Yeah.
in water very long,
Yeah.
then it just.
Yeah.
So I read this whole article of what it was and like how it just like slips off the bone. And then, so I read that yesterday, like morning. And then yesterday for dinner, I had made I got one of those like grocery store chickens and I was
Oh my
taking the
God.
chicken off. And I was like, oh. And my husband's like, what? I'm like, it's like skin slippage. He's like, no,
Oh my God.
no, don't. He's like, no, not interested. And I'm like, fascinated by how I'm like, it does just come right off, like knuckle and everything. He's like, oh. Anyway, I thought it was cool and I enjoyed my chicken. Okay, Lake Ontario's maximum depth is about 802 feet, so 244 meters, with an average depth of around 283 feet, making it the fourth deepest of the Great Lakes. If the boys did go overboard into the lake, it is possible that their bodies would still be intact. They could be anywhere from 240 feet deep to 802 feet deep. There were boats that had fish finder sonar that reported anomalies under the water weeks after the boys went missing. One actually reported to Durham PD seeing what looked to be a boat standing upright, so vertically with the engine weighing it down at the bottom of the lake, which is what would have happened to the boat that they were on if it had taken on enough water. And unfortunately, the police did not investigate this tip. Understandably, the families of the boys were not happy with how the investigation was handled. The lack of effort from the police was disheartening. The families asked the police if they could see the entirety of the surveillance tape. They wanted to see if the other boys showed up later or if there was anything else that may give them answers. The police refused and actually claimed that there wasn't any more tape. For years, the police claimed that to be true. There were reported sightings of two of the boys. Jay Boyle was reported to have been in the United States, and Jamie Lefevre was reported to have been seen walking into his home by a neighbor. When Jamie's mom returned home from work that night, she reported to the police that there were some items missing. The police, however, once again did nothing. On March 29th, 1995, a gas can with French and English writing was found floating in Lake Ontario near Wilson, New York. The can was identified by a small dent in the front of the can as matching the one from the stolen boat. The police took this to be evidence that their story of the boat sinking and the boys drowning was correct. Fucking cops, man. They're like, yep, see, we were right all along. We found a gas can.
And they still did nothing.
Right?
In 2010, Bruce Rickett, a private investigator, wrote about the story of the boys in his blog, Mysteries of Canada, which eventually got him in contact with the Boyle family, and eventually he met with the 5 remaining families in Pickering. He convinced the police to finally conduct an underwater dive team to search for the boys, as a proper dive search was never conducted. Unfortunately, the search was called off at the last minute for unknown reasons and was never rescheduled. To this day, an underwater deep dive search or sonar search has never been done. Bruce decided to take on the case of the missing boys pro bono. He noted that due to the direction and the current at the time the boys went missing, if the gas tank was from the boat they were on, it would have ended up in Toronto, not New York. The same people who owned the marina in New York also owned the one in Pickering. So it wasn't all that strange for the bilingual gas tank to show up there. It was also not realistic to have been definitively confirmed to be the gas tank from the boat the boys were on, as most gas tanks have dents and scratches. The tank was also found 11 days after the boys disappeared, floating upside down without a lid. If it had been floating for the entire 11 days without a lid, it would have taken on water and potentially sunk. Bruce also stated that even if the gas tank did belong to the boat in question, it is not proof that the boat sunk. The tank had a connector on it that keeps it connected to the boat. The only way for it to be disconnected is for someone to disconnect it manually from the boat.
And I'm guessing if these boys were like going overboard, they're not going to be like, oh, hang on, let me disconnect this gas tank first. Right?
And it would have sank. Water
Yeah.
would have gone into it. It would have sank.
Right? Like it doesn't make sense. And I'm sorry, but for you to be like, hey, that's definitely my gas tank because my gas tank has a dent right there, just like that. Fuck off. There's no way, unless your name is on it, you don't know if it's your gas tank. Like if it's just a regular gas, which it was, I've seen the pictures, it's just a normal regular gas tank. No way that they would have known it was theirs.
He also investigated the theory that a tanker could have crashed into the boat without even realizing it. Tankers are often on Lake Ontario primarily to transport petroleum products, chemicals, and other liquids between Great Lakes ports and out to the Atlantic Ocean via the St. Lawrence Seaway. Although this could have been possible, there were no tankers reported to be in the area on the night the boys disappeared. Moreover, For this to have been the case, there would have been debris found on the lake. Bruce also, after 3 years and numerous requests to the police and being told the same as the families that there was no more to the tape. He eventually was able to view the surveillance tapes. The police didn't give him the raw footage. They gave him a sped up version that lasted 6 hours. On the tapes, he found that at 12:15 a.m. on the 17th, a car pulled up to the marina. Two people exited the car, throwing a bag over their back and walked towards the marina. The car left, but was not captured by camera. At 12:27 a.m., two more people walked towards the marina. At 2:01 a.m., three individuals, possibly two females and one male, show up. They stop, and the male appears to hold something in his hand, pointing it towards the two females before they enter the marina. The police again did not follow up on any of the information from the tapes. They did not try to identify any of the individuals on the tape or try to track the car.
Again, way to go, police.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a lot. And for the fact that the cops said, no, we don't have any more for all those years, like, but they did, like, what was the point of hiding that? Like, if there was no, like, that just makes you think, well, the police have involvement in it, right? Because why else would they hide that from the parents? It doesn't
Right.
make them look bad. It's not like there was cops on the video or anything, right? So it's just, I don't know, it seems so dumb for them to hold that back. So Bruce learned that there was quite a bit of drug smuggling going on in the area. According to a friend of his, the best way to smuggle drugs into a port was to own both ports. The one the drugs are going out from and the ones that they are going into, which the owner of the port in Pickering does. He owns that one and the one in New York. Bruce also learned that when the police are getting too close, they purposely sink boats, then renumber them once they enter another country, which explains why the boat the boys were on was never found. The boys could have walked in on drug smuggling when they entered the marina, or they could have been involved. This would explain the other people on the surveillance tape, especially the one with the bag, and why the boat was never been found. However, it doesn't explain what happened to the missing tricycle. That has never been found and definitely would not have sunk. And even though the boys had been in trouble with police, it had never been for drugs, and if they had crossed the border to smuggle drugs, why didn't they return after? So in 2014, the families had searched the OPP data bank for missing persons and learned that two sets of human remains were found in the Niagara River near the Sir Adams Beck hydroelectric generating station near Queenston, Ontario. One of the bodies was wearing a pair of distinctive red pants along with a belt and wallet. The wallet was empty, unfortunately, but the jeans were very specific type of red Levi's and determined to be the exact same as Jay had received from his mum for Christmas and also the same size. The remains found in the jeans were determined to be the same age as Jay. However, the second set of remains appeared to be of a male in his 60s. It was not possible for the remains to have drifted from where the boys went missing to where they were discovered. It is possible that Jay could have made it back to shore and ended up there a different way, though.
When Bruce requested the original police report for the remains, much of the report had been redacted, including the police officer's name. When Bruce asked the Niagara Police Department to conduct a DNA test on the remains, they said there was not enough to test. When he then asked if he could have the remains tested by a third party, the police decided they would be able to do the test after all. However, the DNA did not match. The coroner also said the jeans could not have been from 90s because they were covered in orange fire retardant material that had faded to red. Bruce asked where the remains had been stored since their discovery in 1998, and the coroner said they had been kept at the same hospital that had conducted the report. Bruce had previously worked in a hospital and knew that a hospital could not store a set of unidentified remains for 2 decades. He asked for the continually report, which is referred to in legal and forensic contexts as a chain of custody reports or chain of evidence. It's a document that tracks the physical custody, location, and handling of human remains from the moment they are discovered or received until their final disposition, such as burial, cremation, or release to family. The coroner's office said the reports did not exist, then changed their story to say that the evidence box had been lost and only found when they had made the request. Bruce then wondered if they had the same remains that had been found in 1998.
Yeah, that's suspicious as fuck. So basically, like hospitals don't have the storage space to store like unidentified remains, right? They get turned over to the police. They often get disposed of after a certain amount of time because there just isn't the room to store all this stuff. But the fact that they didn't have the report of like handling, right? So like every time evidence goes from one person to another, it gets on this report. Why wouldn't they have that?
Because it sounds like there is a snake in the.
Right?
Oh.
It makes you wonder if there's the drug import, if there's drug imports going on from like the New York side to the Ontario side. One way to do that without being caught would be to have a cop that's in on it, right? So I don't know, conspiracy theories, but
Someone is burning something.
yeah.
There have been reported sightings of the boys all over the US and Canada, but no solid evidence has ever been found. There have been no breaks in the case since the red jeans. We also have to remember that there is no evidence that all 6 boys went to the marina, as only 3 were seen on surveillance. And even though 3 were shown on surveillance, we only have circumstantial evidence that they took a boat out on the water. 6 teenagers are missing, and the police did not do their job to find them. Unfortunately, Bruce Ricketts passed away on January 2nd, 2024. Jay's parents and the 4 Boyle sisters lost their son and big brother the night the boys disappeared. Sisters Siobhan Boyle and Amanda Boyle and their mother all remember Jay the same way. He was funny and outgoing, says Patricia. He loved his family, that's for sure. If you're a friend, you're a friend. He'd stick up for his friends. Siobhan was just 12 years old when her big brother went missing. Amanda was 15 and shared Jay's group of friends. She was supposed to go to the party at Chad's new apartment the night the boys disappeared, but was sick and stayed home. The next day, Amanda heard from Jay's girlfriend, with whom he had a baby and was living with, that her brother never came home. At first, I wasn't too worried because Jay had a tendency, not that he'd take off, but he had friends in Toronto too. He would go to Toronto, but he always kept in touch, says Amanda. I participated in every single search there was. It was really emotional, says Amanda. The Boyle home became the base camp. We had so much family. We had neighbors dropping off food. Recalls Siobhan, it was ground zero, I guess. It was a mess. When Jay, an avid baseball player, didn't show up to play that season, a cloud shadowed the hope the family had clung on to. To Amanda, Jay's loyalty to his family was a true indicator that her brother wasn't hiding out, planning to return one day.
As time went on, I kind of started accepting it because Jay wouldn't do that to my mom or leave his daughter, she says. Never one to get into a fight before her brother disappeared. Siobhan says she fought her way through her teenage years. When kids would laugh at the situation or make comments that her brother was dead. That's not something you want to see any teenage girl do, is fight all the time. But I thought that everyone was out to get me and didn't understand me. Siobhan and her family did the best they could to keep Jay's memory alive for his daughter. Her mom always had pictures in her room of Jay. She says of the mother of Jay's daughter, now a young woman. His daughter's always been at the beach. There on his birthday, the families gather each March 17th at Frenchman's Bay to remember the boys and to keep their memory alive. I think it's important to keep it out there and in the public for all the boys. Siobhan says, maybe someone might know something that has some truth to it. Might look at their picture after all these years and think, maybe I should speak up if they do know something. Patricia will always have some hope that her son will come home to her, but she too knows that Jay wouldn't have abandoned his family. I hope we bring him home either way, just so I can say bye. And for my girls. They've gone through a lot too, she says. That's heartbreaking. Whatever ended up happening to them, it's so sad.
It's just sad that the police didn't help more.
Right?
Like, that's the worst part. You're supposed to be able to turn to these people for help.
Yeah, especially when there was tips coming in. It's not like they had nothing to go on. There was the boat that was standing straight up in the water. There was the plane that saw the boat right in that first 36 hours when they were searching. Why? Like it makes no sense. Something doesn't add up. I'm not going to say that I definitely think there's police involvement, but something's off is what I'll say.
Well, and it wasn't that old in times either, so it wasn't like it was the 1950s when records were really shitty.
Right? It wasn't that long ago. I guess it was. It was 31 years ago. I mean, if you think about it, like technology has come so far. Like they had that one, like they're constantly putting those little submarine things down at like the Titanic and stuff, right? And searching all through that. Why can't one go in Lake Ontario? Pretty sure it's not deeper than where the Titanic is. Just saying. I will say what's really frustrating about like researching these cases that are Canadian is everything, like you can't get police records or anything. If you're looking up American cases, you can have like when you're interrogated and stuff, that's all transcripts. You can read all of it. You can read the police interrogation, you can read the court records, you can read absolutely everything. In Canada, nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
everything's pretty private in Canada. I noticed that too, because I'm on a lot of pages where, like long lost family pages, right? Where people are
yeah,
looking for and there's just simple Google searches on people. It can show you where they live, their phone number, their criminal record, like everything,
yeah,
right? Like even looking up, like predators and stuff, right? Like people who are on the, what do you
yeah,
call
the sex
that?
offenders list.
The sex offenders list.
Yeah,
They have one in the States. Here, my neighbor could be a sex offender and I would have no idea, right? Like,
right?
we don't have access to that information.
And I
So,
don't I don't know. I find it really frustrating. Like I understand the whole privacy part. Like what if they were actually innocent and they're not a criminal and, why should their information be shared? But honestly, what's wrong with sharing the like police interrogation or the court transcripts and stuff like that? If they're innocent, it should say that shouldn't affect them. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, I guess you can like submit a formal request for them, like to the police, but you have to pay for this request. And then they can say, nah, and you don't get your money back. Like you pay just to request the files.
Hmm.
And it's like, I will pay for the files, but I'm not going to pay for you to go, nah, we don't want to give them to you.
Right.
That just seems ridiculous. But it's unfortunate because it makes looking into some of these Canadian cases hard. Like we did have one criticism that one of the missing kids cases, we didn't have any more information than was already reported. The reason for that, it's not available to the public. The public cannot, like we can ask for them, but be declined. So, and especially on an ongoing investigation, they're not going to give that information out, right? So it's just frustrating that you can't, because then you're basically relying on the news to give you this information. And call me crazy, but I don't like getting my information from the news
Right.
because it's whatever their side is, right? Which I'm sure the same for like other people, like one news station could be this sided or one could be this sided. Like,
You know what? All news stations are one-sided.
exactly. So
They
you're
are.
not
You know
getting
what I
all the
mean? They don't
facts.
always tell you the truth. They just tell you what you want to hear, basically,
Exactly.
right? Like there's
Yeah.
so many. You want the real news, you go to TikTok, okay?
Right?
As bad as as that sounds,
Oh, but
but
it's
it's
the
true
only
because
way,
it
yeah.
shows you another side of the story,
Yeah,
and it's like, whoa, like when they were doing the like blocking the borders. What did they
right.
call that? The truckers were blocking the
Oh,
borders.
yeah, the convoy
The
thing.
convoy,
Yeah,
right? So they would talk about it on the news a little bit, but they wouldn't actually show you how massive it was,
right.
right? They would just kind of make it look like, oh, it was, 5 trucks and they all got arrested. But then you go on TikTok and you can see like how big and massive it actually was.
Yeah,
And just stuff like that, right? Like they withhold a lot of information. They want you to believe what they want you to believe, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah. They're doing the same when they're showing the like people signing the petition for Alberta to separate,
yeah, yeah.
right? They're like,
They
look,
show
there's nobody there.
a
Yeah,
lonely old man at his empty booth,
yeah. And I mean,
begging for people to sign. You know what I mean? But yeah,
yeah, and don't get me wrong, there are some stations that is the way it is, but only because they're not aware, people are maybe not as aware of all the little stations that are around. I wasn't. I had no idea until I drove past one and I was like, "Hey,
yeah,
what's that for?" Right? And so, but if
yeah,
you look online, what's listed as their locations to sign it, they're not all there. And I
yeah,
don't know if that's because some of them just kind of pop up and
yeah,
they're not
probably.
updating the
Yeah,
website fast enough or whatever, but
yeah,
it's just one of those things so that it's all falsely reported. And I'm not saying either way whether you're for or against, I don't whatever. It's just that's the way it is. When the news is reporting on things, it's very one-sided, like
it
Sophia
is
said.
absolutely very one-sided. I don't, yeah. So it's terrible, actually,
It is, and it's
how
so hard.
one-sided it is.
Right? Because then, and people will say, well, do your research. Where the fuck are you supposed to look?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, basically, and then they'll be like, oh, you got your information on TikTok?
Yeah,
Yeah,
which is
because where the fuck else is there? That
because it's
is,
like real life, real
yeah,
time, real life, really happening,
yeah,
where the
it's,
news cuts everything out.
yeah, yeah, exactly. You know what? For prime example, the case that we're going to cover shortly, the West Memphis Three, back way back in 1993, how much we all saw on the news, and then is like this tiny little bit, and everyone went, "Oh my God, they are totally guilty," based off what the
Yeah,
news showed you.
yeah,
There is so much to that case. I have loved this case and followed this case for years. I have learned so much more. And
yeah,
I'm like, how is this stuff
yeah,
not being reported properly, right? Like,
yeah, yeah,
whatever side is benefits whoever is paying for the reporting is what's
yeah,
getting told. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate.
yeah,
Find a good podcast that covers the politics shit, people.
yeah.
That will cover both side. That or TikTok. Stop getting your news from the TV.
Right? Go to TikTok, damn it.
Yeah. But yeah, it was unfortunate. I tried to find so much more information on these boys. Six fucking teenagers go missing. This is barely enough information on it to even tell you the story of it. So it was like I couldn't find whose house party were they at. Like I
Yeah,
found some guy named Chad. Who is this guy?
yeah,
Who else was at the party? Was there multiple people at the party? Was there, like there's so
yeah,
much more information that could have helped, but it wasn't made public.
yeah.
So, what are you supposed to do? So, that's it for Moms on Mics this week.
Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Moms on Mics Podcast, on TikTok at Moms on Mics, and join our Facebook group, Moms on Mics.
If anyone has any topics you would like us to cover, or if you have any questions or suggestions, you can email us at momsonmics@gmail.com or submit through our website, momsonmics.com.
We would also appreciate it if you could rate and review us on whatever platform you're listening on. It really helps the podcast move up on their charts so it gets more exposure. Hope you join us again next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.